Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Saturday. It is the 31st day of May, 2025. And though it's the Sabbath in Israel and things are at a halt right now as far as news stories coming out, things are happening behind the scenes that are setting the stage for some huge events that are about to take place in Israel, Iran, the United States, and elsewhere. We'll get to that with the headlines. First of all, Donald Trump has said we are very close to an agreement on Gaza. This is from the Israel National News. And on the same line from the Jerusalem Post, Hamas is supposed to respond today to Witkoff's ceasefire proposal. And supposedly, we don't know what's going to happen for sure, they will give a positive response, although they may want to see some changes and may insist on changes. And if they do, the proposal seemingly will go down the drain. We don't know. We will wait and see. We'll probably have a story for you during our second time later today on Breaking News when we get some type of response from Hamas. And then an interesting story. The West is pushing the UN nuclear watchdog to find Iran in breach of its duties, diplomats say. This is from the Times of Israel. The last time that watchdog found Iran in breach of its duties were 20 years ago, and they want something very clearly in writing from the nuclear watchdog saying Iran has not kept the agreement because, as we've said, October, the 10-year JCPOA runs out. It's no longer in effect. And what the Europeans want to do is have something from the nuclear watchdog agency that says Iran's been in breach of that so they can do the snapback. And the snapback basically is reinstate some of the sanctions against Iran. Iran is obviously not happy with that, so we'll see what takes place. Now, yesterday we told you we didn't have a second edition of Breaking News because I was having a lunch meeting with my two friends, Nauder and Hagop. And let me tell you, it was beyond fantastic. We're going to try and start doing this once every month. All right, three stories I want to give you out of our meeting, three things that came about. First of all, about this laser beam story. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about this, that there's been a weapon developed that would stop drones coming in. We gave you a little information, but not much because the public had not been made aware of it. Well, finally, a couple of days ago, it broke in the Israeli press about how they've developed this device that can neutralize drones coming in, drone swarms coming into the country. Well, we've got more information now for you after yesterday's discussion. First of all, it's not a single beam. What it is, it's actually a jamming device. And what will happen, all incoming drones, I mean, all of them can be manipulated to either stop, be destroyed, or actually return to where they came from. In other words, total control of these drones, making them completely ineffective. This is a huge step because the drone swarms have been a big problem with various, attacks around the world, particularly in Israel and elsewhere. And now they will be neutralized. So the drones will not be able to bring any weapons or bring any, type of explosives. And what will happen is they'll be neutralized where they can't hit their targets. So this is something now that has been developed. It is an amazing step. So basically, again, any drone attack will be neutralized, and these drones will either be stopped, they'll be jammed, the devices, so they can't be controlled. The ones on the ground from Israel or United States, whatever, can control them to either self-destruct or actually hit the ground or turn around and go back to where they came from. It's amazing technology that's been developed. So anyway, I learned that. So it's not a single beam. That is the key. It's not like a laser beam hitting this one and that one. It's more of a whole wall, a device that will take control of the drone. So again, huge step. Now, also with respect to Iran, accidents are going to keep on happening. We've talked about in the last 6 weeks about 20% of their infrastructure has been destroyed infrastructure with respect to, putting together nuclear weapons. Let's just put it this way. They'll continue to be weakened from within. Important assets in Iran will continue to have accidents, as well as important figures in Iran. Leaders will be removed from the scene. So things are taking place inside the country of Iran right now. We're going to leave it at that, not give you any more information, but it's very exciting to see what's going on. So Iran is being problem. Let's put it this way. How can I put it? Iran is having problems from the inside, things taking place, accidents, people getting in accidents, dying, and the such like that are in positions of authority. And so it basically neutralizes all the more their ability to either withstand an attack or have an attack on Israel or the U.S. So we'll leave it at that. But it was an exciting story to find out that a lot of things are happening there, very positive, and so that was exciting. Also, all in all, in our discussions, we're amazed, literally amazed as we're discussing this, how the biblical scenario of the last days is minutely taking place. All the players of the last days are either already lined up or being lined up, as the scripture says. And it's literally mind-boggling that what we're seeing with respect to the U.S., with respect to Iran, Israel, China, um, Iran. It's just incredible as all this is taking place exactly like we expected it to see, because the Bible gives us the outline of what's going to take place. So again, the emphasis that we had and we put to you is to study the scripture to find out what it says so you can know exactly what's going to take place and watch minutely how all these things are shaping up. It's literally an incredible thing that we're seeing right now. Again, take advantage of our assets on our website, Educating Our World. We have 12 books on Bible prophecy. They're all free downloads. Including look up a timeline of 50 last days events so you know what's going to take place. These events still have to occur, and the stage is being set for that. And also our book 25 Signs, we're near the end. Also, we have 53 books on other various biblical subjects. And like we said last time, we really encourage you to do other Bible study, rather than just last days Bible prophecy. We want to be well-rounded here and understand what we believe as Christians, why we believe it, how to live it. And that's what we're all about. So please take advantage of the free assets. Again, we have 11 different topics on the site going into great detail on these issues. All right, let's get to the headlines. Headline number one, Donald Trump says we're very close to an agreement on Gaza. This is from Israel National News. He says the Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal is very close. He also believes a nuclear deal with Iran is imminent. He says they don't want to be blown up. U.S. President Trump told reporters yesterday in the Oval Office that a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza is close, speculating that an official announcement could come Friday or Saturday. Well, it didn't come yesterday, Friday. May come today. We'll wait and see. He also said he believes a deal with Iran on its nuclear program is close as well. He said they're very close to an agreement on Gaza, and we'll let you know about it during the day or maybe tomorrow. And I think we have a chance of making a deal with Iran. They don't want to be blown up. They would rather make a deal. And I think that could happen in the not too distant future, he says. We want them to be safe. We want them to have a very, very successful nation. Let it be a great nation, but we can't have that. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. I think we're fairly close to a deal with Iran, added Trump. The president's comments come a day after Arab media outlets reported that Hamas and Israel had agreed to a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza proposed by Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, adding that Trump would announce the details within hours. That was yesterday, and we said that story turned out to be false. An Israeli diplomatic official denied the report, saying that Israel is unaware of Hamas's agreement to Witkoff's proposal. And later we had a Hamas official saying the new proposal does not meet our demands. We're still examining it. And Netanyahu had informed the Israeli families of the hostages that Israel had accepted the new ceasefire proposal, but it's in the hands of Hamas right now. And he clarified that Israel's agreement to the Witkoff proposal did not signify an end to the war in Gaza. This is crucial, but this is what Hamas is demanding. There has to be something that officially ends the war in Gaza. So basically, what we're going to find today is Hamas's response. And as our next story is going to indicate, we may hear from them today. However, given their track record, there's no guarantee that they will agree to this new deal. Now, as we've already noted, let's say this again to remind you, many in Israel are very upset if this agreement comes into place. A 60-day ceasefire, only half of the living hostages released. In other words, they'll have 10 more after 60 days if they're still alive, still there. Hamas during the 60 days can regroup, resupply, continue to build more tunnels during this time. Furthermore, the pressure will be horrific on Israel not to restart the fighting, though the battle against Hamas has not been finished. In other words, if there's a 60-day ceasefire, there'll be tremendous pressure worldwide, sanctions probably against Israel to stop the fighting, no more fighting, etc. in Gaza. But that would leave the situation unfinished with Hamas still there and in control. And this is not an option for Israel. So there's so many variables. We'll wait and see. All right, that leads us to the second headline. The Jerusalem Post says Hamas likely to issue positive response to Witkoff's ceasefire proposal. They will, again, as these stories have leaked, they will express opposition to the lack of clear guarantees for ending the war and warns that Israel shouldn't have the freedom of action to renew the war. That's what they're afraid of. After 60 days, they don't want the war renewed. Israel said it's non-negotiable, and Hamas says we don't want that as part of the deal. We want something in print, something in writing, something that U.S. and others agree upon that the war will end after the 60-day ceasefire. So they announced today, Saturday morning, it plans to deliver a response later in the day to the ceasefire proposal that was issued by Steve Witkoff. Sources telling Saudi News, El Ariba, and Al Hadath that the terrorist organization will respond positively to the envoy's proposal, but with reservations. The initial announcement was made by a senior official of the terrorist organization to the Hamas affiliate newspaper, Al Rishalah, adding that the response will come after a series of leadership consultations within the terror group. Hamas will express opposition to the lack, and here's the key, of clear guarantees for ending the war, while also reporting that the terrorist organization will warn in its response it will not allow Israel freedom of action to renew the war and will demand U.S. guarantees for the implementation of the clauses in any agreement with Israel. So this will be a no-starter if this is what they demand. They will not allow Israel freedom of action to end the war. That's Hamas, they're controlling everything. And then they want the implementation of clauses in the agreement with Israel that the war will end after this 60-day ceasefire. Okay. The report also said Hamas will request a Palestinian prisoner not be handed over in just 2 days, as in Witkoff's proposal, but rather in batches in the 60-day truce. Proposals reported agreed upon by all factions, unanimously agreed that yes, we like the proposal, but after 60 days, the war must end, no more fighting, and something in writing that Israel cannot start the fighting again, resume the fighting. All right, so anyway, this is where we're at. And again, if Hamas does insist on certain elements to the proposal, it could spell its doom. Israel's not going to agree to end the war after the 60-day ceasefire unless Hamas lays down its weapons and releases all the remaining hostages and leaves town, as it were. So likely we're going to have another standoff. We don't know that for sure, but it looks pretty much like that's what's going to happen. So we wait for the official announcement later today. Now, this third story, the timing is really interesting. The West to push UN nuclear watchdog to find Iran in breach of duties, diplomats say. Declaration by the IAE, the EA, the International Atomic Energy Association, that Tehran is violating non-proliferation's obligations would likely enrage the Islamic Republic and further complicate its nuclear talks with the U.S. Isn't this interesting? Western powers, this comes from Vienna, Western powers are preparing to push the UN Nuclear Watchdog's board at its next quarterly meeting to declare Iran is in breach of its non-proliferation obligations for the first time in almost 20 years, a move bound to enrage Iran, diplomats say. The step is likely to further complicate talks between the U.S. and Iran aimed at imposing fresh restrictions on Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. Washington and its European allies, Britain, France, and Germany, known as the E3, proposed past resolutions adopted by the IAEA's 35-nation Board of Governors calling on Iran to quickly take steps such as explain uranium traces the IAEA found at undeclared sites. Now, this is a story we've done over the years. They have these undeclared sites that they say we're not enriching uranium, but they've been examined, and the IAEA found traces of uranium there that, they've been enriching uranium there, and they just moved them from these places. And Iran has never explained how this could be, how we could find traces of uranium in these undeclared sites when they're supposed to tell you everything that they're doing. Anyway, as we know, it's already enriching uranium up to 60% purity, which can be further enriched in roughly 90% at a weapons grade. It has enough material at this level, if enriched further, for 6 nuclear weapons, according to the IAEA yardstick. And meanwhile, the semi-official Fars news agency cited an unnamed Iranian official who warned that U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities is a clear red line and it'll have severe consequences. Okay, as we mentioned yesterday, there's no such thing as a good deal with Iran. According to the White House, we should know soon whether or not something will be signed. So here's the bottom line today. From these stories, we find, well, everything is now in limbo with respect to Israel, Hamas, the U.S. and Iran, and Russia and Ukraine. There will seemingly be answers to all three of these issues as to what will happen next. Will there be a ceasefire? Will there be agreements? Or will there be further fighting? Again, it's imperative that we all understand what God has to say about this. We know from Scripture a number of events are still to take place in our world that have not yet happened. So again, please see our book, look up a timeline of 50 last days events. None of these have happened yet, but the stage is set for them, as well as 25 signs we're near the end, where many of these have happened. Actually, again, as we've said, 70 specific details of these 25 signs have already happened, and 30 more details are in the process of taking place. So things have happened, are happening, the stage is getting set, and then there's 50 events that are still to take place according to Scripture. And again, these books are free downloads from our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy. So later today, when we join you, we should know something about what Hamas says. If they're going to be in agreement, are we going to have more problems, et cetera, et cetera. We'll keep you posted on all of this. So anyway, as we said, lots of great things we had out of our meeting yesterday. It's encouraging to see things fall into place supernaturally, miraculously, just like the Bible said. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.